but you don't know what kind of blessings you're going to be blocking if you stay within your comfort zone, and not just blessings for yourself, but blessings for other people. In the last episode, we talked about it. You don't know how many people are connected to your yes. You don't know how many people are going to be blessed by your yes and your obedience to the Lord. So you want to really make sure that when you are stepping out on faith and when you are changing your habits, that it's bigger than you. You are part of a bigger mission than just transforming your own personal life. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Hood Soft Life podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina, and in this podcast, we talk about navigating the challenges that come with growing up in the hood and leaving those challenges behind for a soft life. Growing up in the hood comes with its own set of challenges, but what people don't tend to tell you is not only do those challenges follow you once you've made it out physically, but they tend to intensify. So I'm bringing you along on my journey. I'm going to be honest with you about the struggles and the lessons that I'm learning to achieve a soft life, but we can't achieve a soft life without our relationship with God, so I'm going to be bringing you some Bible. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how you can't create a new life with the same old habits. So, let's get started. Alright, y'all, welcome back to another episode. I am batch filming these within the same week, literally one day after the other. So I hope you had a good holiday season, you had a safe new year, and if you can't tell, I got my hair cut and I'm trying some new hair products. I tried the new Pattern products by Tracy Ellis Ross, and they have done wonders. The camera's not even doing it justice, but aside from that, I want to continue on the same theme of creating a new life, doing a rebrand, whatever. I feel like at the beginning of the year, that's when people really want to change. They really want to step into doing something new or step into what God has called them to do, whatever the case is. And I really want to continue to help you on that journey, but I want it to be biblically sound as well. So we're going to be talking about how you can't create a new life with the same old habits. In today's episode, I'm going to be reading from Luke chapter 5, which we read last week, but we're going to be scrolling all the way down to the bottom, or opening our books all the way down to the bottom, and we're going to be reading verses 33 through 39. I read the NLT version, but you're welcome to find any version that you like best. Before we start reading, for context, I just want to go ahead and point out that there are some things that happened in between our last episode, where we read verses 1 through 10, and where we are now in verses 33 through 39. So in between that time, Jesus has gathered his first disciples, James, John, and Peter. He has healed a man with leprosy. He healed a paralyzed man. And Jesus calls Matthew, whose original name was Levi, to also become one of his disciples. So now that we have that context, I want to go ahead and dive into verses 33 through 39. And here we're going to see a conversation that Jesus is having with some Jewish people. And they're asking him, why do you guys do things so differently compared to everybody else that we have seen before? The Pharisees and John the Baptist's disciples. And Jesus gives them a really good answer for that. A discussion about fasting. One day some people said to Jesus, "John the Baptist's disciples fast and pray regularly, and so do the disciples of the Pharisees. Why are your disciples always eating and drinking?" Jesus responded, "Do wedding guests fast while celebrating with the groom? Of course not. But someday the groom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast." Then Jesus gave them this illustration. "No one tears a piece of cloth from a new garment and uses it to patch an old garment, for the new garment would be ruined, and the new patch wouldn't even match the old garment. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, for the new wine would burst the wineskins, spilling the wine and ruining the skins. New wine must be stored in new wineskins, but no one who drinks the old wine seems to want the new wine. The old is just fine," they say. Reading this at the end of the year, as you get ready to reflect on what you want to change as you step into a new year, maybe your birthday's coming up, whatever the case may be, whenever you watch this, it just really highlighted the fact that you cannot create a new life with old habits, and you can't bring something new, something so tiny, right? Like a new mindset into all these old habits that are dominating your life. A new mindset can be a major thing in changing your life, but if your habits are still the same, those dominate your new mindset, because those are the things you're going to be acting out on a day-to-day basis. So I want to go ahead and break this down verse by verse so we can see the message that God has given us. Verse 33. One day some people said to Jesus, "John the Baptist's disciples fast and pray regularly, and so do the disciples of the Pharisees. Why are your disciples always eating and drinking?" The people that Jesus is having this conversation with, they are Jewish people who abide by Jewish tradition, and they are witnessing Jesus and Jesus' disciples doing something that they have never seen before. And so they're asking, like, why are you doing something so different? We've never seen anybody do this before. Isn't it tradition? Isn't it law for us to always fast and pray regularly? And we can apply this to our own lives. Like, there are going to be times where we're doing something new, something that we've never seen before, something that nobody in our bloodline has done before us, nobody within our close proximity has done before us. And people are going to ask you, like, why are you doing that? Why are you switching up? Why are you doing something brand new? You don't have to do anything different. Just do it how it's always been done. And especially if you're a generational pattern breaker, you're going to get that a lot. Like, why do you want to do something different? We've been doing it like this for so long, for generations. And you're seeing that you can't bring something new into the same pattern and into the same habits, which is why you're trying to do something different. And when you try to step out and do something different, do something that God has called you to do, other people are going to notice it and they're going to ask questions. Some people are going to be genuine and just want to know. Some people may not be genuine, but it's always important to give them the answer that they're looking for. Let's go ahead and look at verses 34 through 35. Jesus responded, "Do wedding guests fast while celebrating with the groom? Of course not. But someday the groom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast." At this moment, Jesus is talking about the new covenant. He's explaining to them what he has come down on this earth to do. And of course, they're not aware of it yet. They're not privy to the information that we have now that we are alive after Jesus' death. But he's explaining to them, I'm doing something brand new. I'm doing something that nobody has ever seen or done before. And we're not fasting and praying because I'm the Messiah, and you don't need to fast and pray to be able to have a conversation with me. You don't need to fast and pray to ask me for what you need. You can witness my miracles, have a conversation with me. Just ask me for whatever it is that you need, and if you have faith, it shall be granted. So there's no need for you to fast and pray. But when I leave, when I'm crucified, and when I rise up to heaven, that's when you're going to need to fast and pray to be close to me, to be within proximity of me, to hear my voice, and for you to be able to be granted the desires of your heart. Not immediately, just keep that in mind, but if it's in alignment with what God has for you, it will be granted. God gives us the blueprint for whatever it is that we're looking for, and when we're stepping into doing something new, if it's in alignment with God, you're trying to gather his strength, you're trying to hear his voice, you're trying to be in his presence, you need to fast and pray so that you can be able to do the thing that seems wildly impossible. That's the way you're going to be able to do it with him on your path that he set for you. For anybody who doesn't know what fasting is when you abstain from something for a period of time, specifically food, but it can be something else, but specifically food. And during that time that you would have spent doing said thing that you're abstaining from, you replace it with time that you are talking to God, you are reading your Bible, you are praying to him, fasting and prayer. That's why they go hand in hand, because you are taking away something that would have taken up your time in your day-to-day life. Maybe it's something that might be taking up too much of your time and it's an idol to you, and replacing it with the Lord and his presence and his word instead. All right, let's go into the next verses, 36 through 38. Then Jesus gave them this illustration. No one tears a piece of cloth from a new garment and uses it to patch an old garment, for then the new garment would be ruined, and the new patch wouldn't even match the old one. And no one puts new wine onto wineskins, for the new wine would burst the wineskins, spilling the wine and ruining the skins. I want to talk more about the second example, because God gives us two examples. He talks about how we can't take a piece of new garment and put it on the old one because it's not going to match, and now you just wasted and ruined a new garment. But I want to specifically focus on the example with the wine and the wineskins, because I did some research. I'm not a theologian. I'm not any of that stuff. I'm just somebody who has a lot of questions. Essentially, if you don't know what wineskins are, they are the equivalent to what wine bottles are today. They were made out of sheep or goat skin, and you would store the wine in there. And the process of fermentation is literally described as the transformation of grape juice into wine. They do not add alcohol into wine. Essentially, once the grape juice is put into the wineskin, it starts to ferment. So it releases these gases and it starts to expand. And the release of those gases is what creates the alcohol within the wine. And with that, New wineskins, they're soft, they're flexible, they're able to stretch and expand along with the new wine so that it can be able to expand to the capacity and allow the fermentation process to take place, allow the transformation to take place. Old wineskins, once they've expanded to their reach, that's it. There's nothing else that you can do. Once the wine is done fermenting, it can stay in that wineskin, but you don't want to take the old wine out of it and then put new wine into it, because that new wine is going to expand and your wineskin has already expanded to its capacity. So now it's going to burst, and now you've ruined the wineskin and you have ruined the new wine as well. And that's what Jesus is calling us to do with our daily life and with our habits. I want you to think of the wineskins as your habits, the way you cope with things, your perspective on the world. And I want you to think of your wine as your mentality, your faith, your conviction, your obedience to God. When you have new faith, when you have new wine and you try to put it into old wineskins, like your old habits, your old perspectives, your old coping mechanisms, something is going to break, because the two are not compatible. In order for you to be able to change your life and to grow as a person and to be able to expand and be transformed, to be fermented, you need to be able to have the new wine, the new sense of faith, the new sense of obedience, the new sense of knowledge, the new sense of conviction, and you need to be able to have the new wineskins, new habits, new coping mechanisms, new perspective. Once you have two of the same, that's when you'll be able to grow and expand the most. I'm curious to know if anybody has ever experienced this sense of new conviction, new faith, but for some reason you're feeling stuck in these same cycles. You keep making the same mistakes, you keep making the same decisions, and you're kind of wondering like why you're not moving. And in all honesty, it's because of your habits. God can give you a new sense of conviction, a new sense of faith all day long, but your habits are going to be the things that really shows him that you're taking that new sense of conviction, you're taking that new sense of knowledge and new sense of faith and applying it to your life. In the last episode, we talked about how you need to step out on faith. And when Simon stepped out on faith, that is what showed Jesus that he was taking it seriously, because he had heard Jesus preaching. It's one thing to hear God's word. It's another thing to step out and actually live out God's word. And that's what he's saying here in these verses as well, is that you can say that you have a new sense of faith, a new sense of conviction, you have knowledge, but are you actually applying that knowledge in terms of the way that you live your day-to-day life, the way that you step out into this world, the habits that you have, the perspective on life that you have, your coping mechanisms? If those things aren't changing, you're going to continue to repeat these cycles until you finally decide to change your habits. So for anybody who is feeling stuck, I really encourage you to think about what kind of habits have you been holding on to that are not serving you anymore, because those are the things that have been keeping you stuck. Let's look at verse 38. New wine must be stored in new wineskins. You need to be able to create new wineskins. Remember, I said think of your wineskins as your habits. You need to be able to create new habits to store that new sense of faith, that new sense of conviction, that new sense of knowledge. Until you do that, you're going to get stuck on the hamster wheel. And the two are not going to be able to do the same, because your habits can only take you so far. People are always like, oh, well, I've been doing good so far, like I'm clearly going to keep going. It's like, think of it as like taking a train, right? The train only goes to a certain destination, and after that it stops. If that's not your destination, which for most of us that's not, you need to get off the train and you need to get on a new one to continue to go. Same thing for this example with the wine and the wineskins. Your wineskin has expanded beyond capacity. There's nothing else that you can do with it anymore. If you want to continue to create new wine, you need to replace that wineskin with the new wine and a new wineskin as well, for it to be able to ferment, expand, grow, change, transform. Same thing with yourself. If you want to be able to change your life and grow as a person, grow as a Christian, etc., you need to be able to replace the habits that you currently have so that you can continue to grow, change, expand as a person, and so that you can be transformed miraculously. The grape juice turning into wine, that was a miracle. They don't add the alcohol in it. It's the fermentation process. It's the science behind it. In order for you to be able to transform your life into the way that you have visioned it, into the way that God has given you this vision, because we want to do things in alignment with the Lord here, you're going to need to change your habits in order to get that fermentation process for yourself and for your faith. And let's look at our last verse, verse 39. But no one who drinks the old wine seems to want the new wine. The old is just fine, they say. In this section, Jesus is talking about how people do not want new things. They do not want change. They want to stick to what they know. They want to stick to what they're comfortable with. That's where they want to be. There was a miracle that Jesus had performed, and I'm going to figure out what it is, and I'll place it somewhere on the screen or in the description. But he performed this miracle in front of a crowd of people, and they literally told him to leave. They were scared of him, and they did not want this new change within them. They had never seen somebody perform a miracle like that before, and they were like, we need you to leave. This is scary, whatever the case may be for them, whatever they were thinking. They were like, we don't want this here. And Jesus is saying the same thing. They don't want this new covenant. They don't want what I'm coming to do. Like, yes, there are people that are listening, but the majority of people on this earth, they don't want what I'm giving. They want to turn me away. They want to continue to stick with the traditions that no longer serve them. The Jewish law and the Jewish traditions were no longer serving the people on this earth. That is why God sent down Jesus to be crucified, so that he could die for our sins and give us a new covenant and to release us from legalism. It's not just about the way that we live our lives in terms of a set of rules, but how do we operate in terms of love, in terms of our relationship with God. And Jesus is talking about how people don't want something new. Like, I don't understand. Like, people don't want this new covenant. People don't want to experience new things. People don't want to accept the miracles for what they are, as true miracles and true blessings. And that is going to be the case in your life. There are going to be people who are watching you transform, and they're going to be like, well, you've been doing this for the whole time. Why would you switch it up now? It's gotten you this far. Why don't you just stick with that? And it may not be out of disdain. It may genuinely be asking a question, but in order for you to transform, you're going to have to really change things in your life. The small things that you change in your life day to day is what's going to lead to this huge transformation where you become an unrecognizable person within the next year, 6 months, 5 years, whatever it is that God's timing has for you. And so I really just want you to keep that in mind as you continue to press forward and do the thing that God is calling you to do. There are going to be people who are asking you, why are you switching up? Why are you changing? And it may not be out of animosity. It may not be anything negative. It may just be the fact that they're comfortable with doing what they want to do, what they're familiar with doing. Even the body, I was talking to my therapist about this. The body, it wants to stay where it's comfortable because that's where it is safe. And so when you try to step out and do new things, it's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to have a hard time going back and forth because your body wants to stay where it's familiar because they know that it's safe. Your body doesn't know what this new thing is going to do or how it's going to affect the body. So it's like, I'd rather just stick with what I know. How many times have you heard that? I'd rather stick with the enemy that I know instead of going with the enemy that I don't know. But you don't know what kind of blessings you're going to be blocking if you stay within your comfort zone, and not just blessings for yourself, but blessings for other people. In the last episode, we talked about it. You don't know how many people are connected to your yes. You don't know how many people are going to be blessed by your yes and your obedience to the Lord. So you want to really make sure that when you are stepping out on faith and when you are changing your habits, that it's bigger than you. You are part of a bigger mission than just transforming your own personal life. The biggest thing that I want you to take away from this episode is that as you get ready to plan your rebrand, if you haven't already, if you're really thinking about, like, I want to just change as a person, I want to grow as a person, I want to expand, whether that's in my relationship with God, whether that's at my job, my business, school, whatever the case is for you. Just really think about what habits that need to go ASAP and really analyze those little habits that you may not think are a big deal, because they might be small deposits that add up to a large sum over time. And you may think it's not a big deal now, but when you look back at it within the next month or even within the next week, you're like, okay, that actually has a huge effect on my life. Like, for example, if you spend 2 hours a day on your phone just doom scrolling over a period of time, that time adds up, and that's time that was wasted. It could have been spent working on your studies, working on your job, working on your business, working on your relationship with God, spending it with others. Literally could have been spent on something else. So think about not just those big habits that you know need to be changed. I feel like that's obvious, but go a little bit deeper and think about what are the small habits, the small deposits that you're making daily that need to be changed. All right, I want to go ahead and jump into our shadow work prompts for this week. I have 3 for you. The first one is, what habits in my life once protected me but now restrict my growth? Number 2, what perspective or conviction has God been stirring in me lately? And the last one, am I blaming the discomfort on God when it may be my unwillingness to change containers? All right, we are at the point where we've reached the affirmation for this week's episode, and the affirmation for this week is, I have the capacity to carry what God has entrusted to me. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat that 3 times. If you have the ability to close your eyes, close your eyes. If you want to write this down, however you want to speak this positivity onto your life, find a way to do it. So, I have the capacity to carry what God has entrusted to me. I have the capacity to carry what God has entrusted to me. I have the capacity to carry what God has entrusted to me. All right, y'all, that is all I have for you this week. If you enjoyed this week's episode, please don't forget to hit the like button if you're watching this on YouTube. You can also go ahead and, just tap the subscribe button as well. And feel free to leave a comment. I would love to have a conversation with you and just get other people's perspective on the verses that we read today and just this topic in general. If you are listening on any of the audio platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, literally any of them, go ahead and follow us on those as well. And if you can leave a 5-star review, I would so appreciate you. And if you can do something extra on top of that, if you have the time, because I know a lot of time people be like, I don't have time for that. If you can write a written review, I would really appreciate it. I really appreciate the feedback and just seeing like how I can continue to grow and what it is that you guys are looking for, what is helpful to you, what are some things that you want to see more of. And you can follow us on social media, both at TikTok and IG at the HSL Pod. And if you want to see more of my day-to-day life behind the scenes as a teacher, as somebody who's interested in fitness, as somebody who occasionally likes to post a cooking video here and there, you can follow me both on IG and TikTok at Sabrina, that's SABRINAA.LIZET. But that's all I have for you this week, and I'm gonna catch you in the next one. Bye.